Well, now that you've discovered where to seek, where to focus your attention and your energy, further aligning yourself with the frequency of the divine within you, all these things shall be added unto you. But what are all these things that's spoken of in the equation? That's what we're going to cover in today's video. My name is Michael, and welcome to All Is Within. This channel is for those of you who know that more is possible in life, but you're not sure exactly where to begin. And as always, everything starts with you, and everything you truly need is found within. So let's begin by taking a quick recap of our discoveries so far. In part one, we took a look at the verse, "Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you." This is a verse from the ancient text of the Bible, right? Matthew 6:33. We have that verse up here on the board behind us. And what we did next was we broke that verse down into the hidden equation for life so that we could see the beauty of this universal law. We broke it down. Seek ye first. What is it that you seek? You seek the kingdom of God. And you seek his righteousness. And that brings us to the equation that all these things shall be added unto you, the piece that we are going to cover today. So as we go back for a quick recap here, to start the equation, to put the universal law into practice, we learned that you alone are responsible for where you direct your energy. The seek, that is the first thing you do, is the conscious, intentional direction of your attention. What you choose to focus on and where to point your energy. Instead of allowing your attention to be taken up by everything else out there that is constantly vying for our attention, instead of it just being lost in the distractions of life or by all of the ads or by all of the apps, or instead of allowing your attention to focus on the worries and the fears and the problems and the anxieties, you choose instead to direct your energy where it can be used for your highest and best good, because this allows you to reclaim your power and to stop thinking from a victim mindset. So that's the first piece. That was reviewed in part one. In part two, we took a look at the kingdom of God and his righteousness. We took a look at this language. We took a look at these phrases. We took a look at these words. What do they actually mean? Because whenever we hear something like the kingdom of God and his righteousness, it has an overtone of, depending upon your religious background, it can have an overtone of, that seems kind of scary. Or it may just be like, I don't know what on earth this is even trying to say, right? So in part two, we talked about the kingdom of God. Where is the kingdom of God? It is inside. It is within you. And then we looked at, what does his righteousness mean? We also looked at the fact that when we're talking about kingdom and his, not to get hung up on the fact that this is written in patriarchal type language. That's also discussed a little bit in part two. So go back if you want to learn a little bit more about that. But his righteousness here means what is aligned truth within you. It's not righteousness or right in a moral sense of right or wrong. Based on the work that we did in part two of what these things meant, we then reworded the equation. We just kind of gave some examples to further allow for our understanding of it. So instead of saying, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, we reworded it, for example, to seek first the supreme authority within you and align yourself to the truth of who you are. Or seek first the creator or the supernatural within you and allow yourself to align with the frequency of unconditional love. Because as we know, God is love. And through God, all things are possible. We also spoke briefly that going within and aligning is not about forcing anything. It is about softly but intentionally directing your attention, your energy within, and then allowing yourself to let go, to surrender, to open, and allow that you may align with the divine that is within you, with the universal force of all that is. It is the recognition that you are one with all that is. By doing this, we are taking mastery and ownership of where we are directing our attention, of where we are seeking, instead of allowing our attention and our energy just to be scattered about and pulled in all directions. So with this understanding in place, let's look at what we're going to talk about here in part 3. We can move on to the final piece of the equation, because if we start here and do these things that we previously discussed, it says this is the promise of the universal law, right? All these things shall be added unto you. I don't know about you, but that sounds pretty awesome to me. But the question may come, okay, what is all these things that this equation is talking to? In order to understand what all these things are and to get some context for it, this equation is Matthew chapter 6, verse 33. But we need to go back to Matthew chapter 6. What is Jesus, what is Yeshua talking about in chapter 6 before he gives this equation, this universal law for life? So we have to go back there and we have to get some context around this. Earlier in that chapter, Jesus speaks on the following. He speaks on not storing up treasures for yourself on earth, where moth and rust and things of that nature destroy, but store up for yourself treasures in heaven that will remain. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. He then goes on to speak that the light of the body is the eye. He does not say eyes, he says eye, singular. And then he goes on to state, if thine eye be single, the whole body, remember your body is the temple, shall be full of light. But if thine eye is evil, in other words, if it operates as though it is separate from oneness, separate from the divine, then your whole body will be full of darkness. In other words, you will be operating from your unconscious lower self. And in this instance, Jesus is speaking directly to the equation that he provides in Matthew 6:33. He's talking about the seek part. He is speaking of the power of meditation, of going within. Because after all, that is where the kingdom of God lives, as we learned in part 2. And as a note, we're going to have a bonus video coming out next week where we can actually put this equation into practice through a guided meditation. So let's get back now to the context of what all these things are. Jesus then goes on to teach that You cannot serve two masters. And he says you cannot serve both God and money. So first of all, here we want to look at this word again. What do you mean by money? Well, money here is a transliteration from the Aramaic word mammon, which means wealth, riches, possessions, i.e., things of the physical or material world. So you cannot serve both God and wealth, riches, possessions, things of the material world. He is reiterating what he stated earlier in chapter 6 about storing up treasures on earth, i.e., the physical realm, the material realm, or treasures in heaven, the spiritual realm. For where your heart is, there your for where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. You see, Jesus is saying that when you direct your attention, whatever you direct your attention on, it becomes the organizing force of your life. If you focus on accumulating in the physical world as a primary source of all things, versus if you focus your attention within and to the divine and to the spiritual realm, it's not about rejecting material things or money, but about what you are allowing to govern you or be a master of you. When your focus is rooted in fear or lack or worry or in accumulation of these material things, then those things begin to define and direct you. But when you return to the inner alignment of truth, presence, and love, your relationship to everything in the external world that's around you, in the material world, in the physical world, transforms and begins to align with that which is from your spiritual world, which is that which is from the kingdom of God. Because we create from within to the external. And ironically, you can't take anything from the physical world with you, right? When you pass on, when you transition on, you don't even get to take your physical body with you. That's the whole point Jesus is making. Why accumulate all of these things and why worry so much? That's the biggest part of it. Why worry so much and just strive and strive and strive to accumulate all these things when you can't take any of this material or physical stuff with you? But instead, if you focus on God, if you focus on the kingdom of God within here and live from that alignment and generate from that alignment, all of these things that you need in life, they're going to be added unto you. And I want you to notice that word added. How freaking great is that? All these things shall be added unto you. The great thing about this is that if you begin in the external world chasing and grasping for all of these things, right? It's generally a pretty uphill battle. And you're also neglecting the deeper spiritual aspects of life because they do not get touched, they do not get fulfilled per se by you simply chasing after accumulation of things in the physical and material world, even if they're experiences. But when you start from within, when you start from the divine, when you go from the inside out, all these things that you need will be added unto you. So you get the benefit of the peace and the presence that comes from going within. And this gives a direction and a map for your life that maps and paints onto the external world around you. And as it paints onto the canvas of the world around you as a co-creator with life itself, all of the things that you need, the things that you desire, are being generated from within, from the kingdom of God within, the abundance of God within. And all of these things will be added unto you. We're going to dive a little bit deeper into that here in just a moment. Jesus then goes on in Matthew 6. Before he gets to Matthew 6:33 with this equation here, He then continues on and says, why do you worry about your life? Take no thought, is what he says. Listen, stop worrying about what you're going to eat, what you're going to drink, what you're going to wear, how am I going to provide for myself, all these things. He says the birds and the beasts of the field are taken care of, right? They don't necessarily go around and plant the seeds and then come back and harvest them for themselves. Everything in nature has a way of taking care of everything in nature. This is by divine design. And then it goes on to say, look how God takes care of them. How much more valuable are you? Do you not think that God will take care of you? And why worry? It goes on to say, you cannot add a single day or moment to your life through worry, through focusing on the fear, through focusing on the lack of the basic needs, nor by focusing on the past, nor by the anxiety about the future. God knows what you need in life, and He will provide what you ask. Over and over, Jesus is reminding us that we are one with God, and God is the provider of all things, the divine within. Now, we've been taught, this is very confusing to most of us because we've been taught to seek it out there, right? That we've got to hustle, we've got to grind, we've got to force, we've got to chase, we have to compete. Notice how everything is set up for competition, right? For performance, that you have to perform and compete in order to get what you need. But Matthew 6:33, this equation here, flips it completely on its head and says, no, first you seek the kingdom of God, which is within you, as we went through in part 2, and his righteousness, the alignment of truth that lives within each of us, right? And then all of these other things, all these things that Jesus has just been talking about, the things in the material and the physical realm, that you know you need for basic life and for basic survival, plus your dreams and your desires and the gifts from life and the experiences from life that you want. All of these things will then be added unto you, but you first have to start here. You first have to start within, because this is where all things are generated from. You ever notice what happens when you try to change things externally first rather than from within? You basically become a hamster on a wheel. Constant motion, no clarity, no real peace, no direction, a feeling of emptiness. And when everything goes quiet, in the stillness of the quiet of the night, in those moments that everybody has at some point, there's an emptiness. And even when you achieve, even when you accumulate the next thing, it's on to the next thing, right? Because all of your identity is being sourced in the external physical world, instead of realizing your identity is that you are one with the divine, that source lives within, that creation comes from within. And when we have the realization that we are not separate from all these things out there, that in fact we are the generators of these things, we are the co-creators with life of these things, everything shall be added unto you when you first seek within. See, the truth is, you are always serving something. And this is what Jesus was trying to get at in this big chunk of teaching in Matthew 6. You're either serving the inner source, the divine within, the spiritual realm, the kingdom of God, or you're serving external accumulation in the physical world. Wealth, possessions, material things, they are not the problems per se. There's nothing wrong with having those. But when it becomes your source of identity or security, then that begins to control you. That is where your heart is directed in. And what you value directs your heart. And what directs your heart then governs and rules your life. When you live from external pursuit of things that are out there, you're always going to be chasing something. And even after acquiring them or achieving them, you're on to chase the next thing. But when you are aligned, when you go within, you surrender, you open, you align with the truth of all that is, with the truth of who you are, everything else begins to flow from that foundation, which is why you end up with this result of all of these things being added unto you. I'd like to do a practical exercise for you right now. Based on what we've learned about the meanings of various words in Matthew 6:33 in parts 1, 2, and 3, I want you to take some time to rewrite Matthew 6:33 in your own words. For instance, you may take the kingdom of God. You may take righteousness. You can simplify this all the way down. The kingdom of God could become the realm within. Righteousness could simply become alignment with my inner truth. Rewrite this whole thing in a way that resonates with you, most strongly with you. And there is no right or wrong in this. You could rebuild this equation to be as simple as seek first the inner realm plus the alignment of truth within, and everything I need or dream of flows to me. And remember, when we are looking within and we are aligned, that this outcome is a guarantee. It's a promise. So as you go through life, as you go through the next days, if you feel fears coming up or confusion coming up, worry, anxiety, whatever it is, I want you to ask yourself this: where am I placing my attention right now? If you have pervasive thoughts or persistent thoughts of worry and fear coming up, and that's a good cue for you to say, okay, I've got some attention focused on this fear, this problem, this particular anxiety. And that's your cue. That's your cue to practice, to gently bring it back in. No need to judge yourself. Just notice and say, okay, there it is. Right? And then gently bring your attention, which you have control over, within. Right? Bring it back within to the kingdom of God, to the alignment of truth that exists within you. If this series has spoken to you, if something inside you is starting to shift, I encourage you to go back and listen to parts 1, 2, and 3 again. Do these practices that I put forth, these little exercises that I put forth. And don't just simply hear this, because the fact is, if you practice it, that's how life actually works, right? That's how we become aware. That's how we make the unconscious conscious in our life, so we can live from a new place of being. Well, that's it for the final part of this series. I thank you for joining me on this. Next week, we're going to have a bonus video, like I said, relating to this entire series, how we bring it all together in a practical, guided meditation that you will be able to do. And if any of this resonated with you, please let me know in the comments. Hit the like button, subscribe, turn on the notifications, and if you would, share this with a friend. And as always, blessings and love to each of you.